Okay, we ready?
Yep.
Everybody find a seat, please. Ken, will you stop flirting and sit down? Thank you. We got you, man. We got you. All right, would everybody stand up? We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
How about that?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
That's a good
and to the
idea.
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll try to move quick. I have a goal of 90 minutes tonight. Will you guys help me with that?
So you're going for 60 minutes.
No, we got a lot to get done. So let's do this. We have a lot of new faces and some faces we haven't seen in a while. So just really quick introduction, and we'll start with Tom and just make our way back, and then we'll get started.
73, 74.
You're Phil. You're Phil.
Oh, it's 2730.
Eric, how about you, man?
Eric Fox, 1063.
Ken Horn, 2790 and 91.
Scott King, 2378.
George?
George Lord, 1882.
Brian Bates, 832, 33.
Welcome.
Denise Love, 1930 31.
Sean Bennett, 1854, 1855.
Ben Boyer, 1570. Steve Hacker, 745.
Got them all 130.
Awesome.
Doug Gabbard,
I got the videos.
Michigan, 1107.
Dave Wisman, community manager.
Julie Mason, 54.
Hi, Nora.
Amy Ayers, 210607.
Wayne Nolan, Christy Dole, lot 30.
All right, welcome. How many of you are here for the first time ever? All right, hopefully you'll come back. That's so much fun. Just wait. All right, we're gonna get started with the president's report and get rolling. So welcome everybody, and both all of you here to introduce yourself. Thank you for that, and all the folks online. So typical late March in Indiana, 70 degrees one day, 35 the next. We love it, right? That was a question. All right, so with the trees and flowers blooming, it's great to be in HVL, and luckily the summer is just around the corner as we know it. So we've got a lot to cover, as I mentioned, and we'll do our best to get in and out of here at 90 minutes, as long as we don't get sidetracked. I do want to highlight a few key things. Our board election process is quickly coming to a close. Hard to believe. I know I received my ballot this week. How many people received ballots? I think they're pretty much out there. So that's terrific. And they are due into the office by April 18th. If you want to make a note for yourself. Ken Horn, who is here, wave at everybody, Ken. And Brian Bays, our candidates. We went through a lot of work, thanks to Rich, to record candidates night. If you haven't already gotten the link, you can find it on the website. And Rich took an extra step, and we indexed by time the questions. So if you don't want to listen to these guys for 15 minutes, you got 15 minutes, you can pick the questions you want. So hopefully we made it a little bit more user-friendly for you. So trying to make it easier. So please be informed, ask more questions if you have them. You can corner them tonight. That's perfect. And just select the candidate you feel best serves HVL for the next 3 years. And as we mentioned before, you've got big shoes to fill with Dave Hafner. So guys, no pressure. But thanks for the time you guys you've put in. Unless you've done it, you don't realize how involved it is. And Jenny for running the election. Thank you for that. And be close to starting the counts. So invites are going out tomorrow to committee chairs for our first leadership console on April 5th at the POA office. So that gives everybody about 14 days notice. When you get the invite for all the committee chairs that are here, please RSVP. We want to make sure we get as many people as possible to get started. And we're excited to begin the new board year at the end of April with more focus on idea sharing, which has been serving us pretty well as committees have started to cross over more to share and collaborate where it makes sense. So we're super excited to get more involvement in thought process. And finally, our HVL annual meeting, for those that have been before, for anybody that hasn't, will be April 28th, which is next month's board meeting date, starting at 7 p.m. at the Hidden Valley Golf Course Clubhouse. We'll share the great progress in the community, building off of the year prior, and then also where our focus will be for next year. So hopefully you'll be super informed. And if you don't get a chance to come often and you can only pick one meeting, that's probably the one to do it. All right. So with that, David Wisman, Treasurer's Report.
Jeff Fuel couldn't be here tonight. He has to give his report. Cash position as of February the 1st was $998,874. And at the end of February it was $999,625.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Pat, with the Secretary's Report.
Could I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our February 24th board meeting?
Motion.
Thank you. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions or concerns? All in favor of accepting the minutes as written?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
All right, back to Mr. Wisman and the Community Manager's Report.
Good evening, everyone. A little bit about our office. This is the busiest time of the year for our office. We ask that you have patience with the staff, have your paperwork ready. That has been a problem already. The insurance form seems to be a real hiccup this year. It's very important that you bring in the proper paperwork when you come in. It just makes the process a lot smoother. If you're renewing your stickers for your boat or your golf cart, you have to have this form. Finally, remember the staff doesn't make, or the staff members don't make the rules. Those rules are made by your board and through the committee process. And if you have an issue with something, instead of getting on the staff about it, come in and talk to me. My door's always open. My phone's always ready for you. My phone number's in the book and everything else. Give me a call. I'm more than happy to explain things to you. May not still be happy with my answer, but please don't take it out on the staff. I'm telling you, this is a tough environment. And I don't need any more problems with fighting with it. Speaking of which, we're still working on our security team. I spoke with the sheriff today. We have some ideas on how to get some more deputies here. For right now, I feel pretty comfortable with our group. We have a security team with very well-trained police officers that have experience. Zach is going to be back April 1st from his academy, so we've got a pretty good foundation to work on. We're going to work on a little better structure so that we're not constantly moving people through here. But I felt pretty good about my conversation with the sheriff this morning, and I feel like we're on the right track there. Infrastructure management, we're in the final stages of preparing our roads plan for 2022. We'll be making RFQs, mainly focusing on ruts and depressions that are in mainly Alpine Road this year. That's a pretty significant problem. The task force has also recommended purchasing a crack fill machine, so our maintenance team can do this task when needed. In our test run, one of the problems we had was rain is a factor. It sets you back a couple of days, so if you're renting equipment, it takes 2 days off your process. So something that we could benefit long term by actually having the machine. Willie's docks, our contractor recently completed 5 new stationary docks near the Willie's area, and we plan to complete the stationary landing in the fall. Still evaluating our process for the floating docks and the RFQs for that. Erosion control, our roads task force once again is asking for some help in identifying those areas where water is pooling. We're only asking for a short training session, and when it rains, giving us an idea of what we're dealing with at culverts, things like that, so if we can get some volunteers. please give me a call. I promise we won't keep you any longer than we have to. It should be kind of a short and sweet thing, possibly something we'd want to do annually, just to keep track of our ditching efforts. The golf course, the south wall, the clubhouse has been repaired this week. You know, looks pretty good compared to the way it was. Just to give you an idea of what we run into, this was contracted last year, and it's taken a good 3 to 6 months to get the person on site and get this job done. So seems to be a problem recently. We sent out RFQs for paving the golf course, and I have them in my hand here. We received 2. Would you like to open these at this time?
Go ahead.
You know,
Yeah, please.
the first one is from Holmes Paving. This was dropped off at the office. Okay, we need to look at numbers on this. On that one, it looks like we'll have to, you want me to give numbers or?
If there's high level numbers there, great, but just so everybody
Yeah,
knows.
these are all by square feet,
Yeah.
so we'll have to do some
Yeah.
figuring.
Yeah, lots of work to do to bring them to apples to apples.
The next one is from Wriggler Blacktop. That's in Florence, Kentucky. Holmes is out of Cincinnati. They've given us pricing for 18 holes and by the unit ton. So their overall price for 18 holes was $313,000.
Dave, you said that was for 18?
All
Right.
18 holes.
Yep.
We've had some hardy golfers, moving on, we've had some hardy golfers at the golf course this year for our winter. It has always amazed me that we golf in the winter around here. I grew up not far from the country club, and they shut her down in the winter. They didn't do much golfing in the winter. We have a little update here on fiber optics. This will be also posted in, is this one in Echoes?
Yeah.
This same one we have in Echoes, okay. So you'll notice there, there are a couple of streets there that are not in Hidden Valley. That are part of the overall project on their end. A little status on Willie's roof. I think I've adopted that building, unfortunately, but we have been working with the contractor. Our attorney suggested that we are told us that we had to at least give him an opportunity to fix it. There was an issue with the way that it was attached first time. So we've had engineers since November looking at first the fastener. And then after that finally came back, there was an issue with how many of these fasteners, these screws are like that long that they're fastened with. So then there's how many and the placing of those fasteners. The contractor says that he's on the tail end of this with the engineers. Hopefully we'll have that relatively soon. Of course, we're getting into a weather that's more climate friendly for re-roofing. So I hope that comes up soon. I apologize. This has been one of the most frustrating parts about this job, is dealing with something that I have very little experience in. But the roof parts in question would be the parts that are over the bar and that are over the dining area. So the rest of the roof is okay. It's a standard kind of roof, just like any other kind of rafter roof we have. These particular areas have panels. And if you look up at the roof, you can see this. They've got like spaghetti, and there's some kind of like acoustical / insulation type of a board. They call it Tectum. And these, the way that it should have been attached with these large screws that would drill down into the fiber and hold on to there better. So the contractor has agreed in principle to replace all of that and to put it on properly. We had to do first off pull test with an engineer for the fastener themselves to make sure they would hold. And then there's a pull test with a panel that's been properly screwed on, and all that stuff takes a little bit of time. So want to give you a quick update on that. We look to have a fascinating Memorial Day function this year. Rich has been working with the team on that already. We've had some pretty neat events the last few years on that. And other than that, I think I'm pretty well caught up. So, any questions?
All right, David, thank you. Appreciate it. Mr. Cross, so we're gonna ask everybody to bear with you because you have an entire page to yourself tonight.
All right, I'll move as rapidly as I can. I have a handout for you. There was a change from what you have on your
Oh,
agenda.
okay, thank you for that.
A bit of an addition.
Okay,
I'll refer to it when I get there.
okay, sure. Thanks.
All right, good evening. Again, Tom Cross, 1573-74, Architects Committee. We'll start this evening with a bond return request. It is for lot 2557, located at 1876 Coke Circle West. Residents there are Stephen and Deborah Taylor. The bond amount is for $2,000 and there are no outstanding dues or fines or fees owed at this time. The only bond request we have this month.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Moving on, we also have this evening a request of approval for a variance for Mr. Gary Dole, lot 3094, located at 146 Green Lawn Way. It is a variance request for an additional 248 square feet of concrete parking pad located on the front elevation of the property. Regretfully, the committee was unable to approve that permit due to the non-compliance with our current bylaws. I do have some background on that if the board needs.
Go ahead and just high level share with, please. Yeah, go ahead and give some
Okay.
background, please.
Again, this began in actually in October. The first time the committee sat down with Mr. Dole was in November the 3rd, to be exact, where he came before the committee and was asking to be permitted for this additional 428 square foot of parking pad. The parking pad had been poured in place without permit. It was explained to Mr. Dole at that time that, again, it exceeded our 360 square feet maximum allowable. And there were a few suggestions made so that might be brought into compliance as far as removing some of it. We were given Mr. Dole 90 days to come into compliance at that point. 90 days passed, and then an additional 30. We also explained to Mr. Dole at the time that he had the right to request a variance. The 90 days passed, and then an additional 30 days. There was no change in the property there, and at that point, a fine was levied. Mr. Dole then applied for variance, and that's what you find in front of you this evening.
Does the board have any other questions before we open it up to the audience for any comments? Okay. We talked through this at length. So let me give you an overview of where we're at with this, and then we'll field questions. What's that?
That's right.
Yeah, we'll field questions if they're there. So what I want to first do is make a motion, and we are looking to table this issue. So if I could get a first and second on that, we'll go ahead and vote, and then we'll open it up for a little bit discussion of where we're coming from and any questions from the audience. First. Second, Dave, second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so here's where we're at. The rules are in place for a reason, and all this could have been resolved pretty easily by just following that process, right? So we're not trying to be unfair, but what we also kind of recognize is that the architectural committee is doing their job, and they do it very well, and we try to put them in a position that it's pretty black and white, so they don't have to operate in gray. When it comes to gray, because they can't move outside the rules, that's when we get involved. And so we've had lots of conversation. We've got lots of experience on the committee, and where we kind of wound up is that there are rules that make sense, but the way Hidden Valley was started from day one, if you could go back and do it over and tighten up it as a planned community, and it was all cookie cutter, all that stuff would be a lot easier. But every lot's different, every situation's different. So then we get into the architectural eye test, and so what are the appropriate steps when something doesn't go the way? Is it a fine? Is it tear out a driveway? And so we spent a significant amount of time tonight talking about it. And what was really clear to us is that we're going to table it. We all haven't seen it. We want to be in better support of the architectural committee and spend time with them when they're dealing with something like this, because their situation's very black and white. But we are, as a part of this process, going to go back and look at the rule, because quite honestly, we want standards in the valley that y'all want, but we are spending way too much time on parking pads. And we know how we got there. We know the constraints of the community in terms of places to park. So we just want to, before we make a decision, better understand it, look at the rules so that we're consistent. And if there's a better way to support architecture in the process, because it's a tough spot, they kind of have to follow the rules as is. But every time we go into something like this, if it keeps repeating itself, you go, okay, so is the process wrong? Is the rule a little bit outdated? Where are we? So we voted during executive session to table it out of fairness to really everybody. And we will come back to this after the annual meeting. Okay, any questions on that?
Are people, Pat Paul, 130?
Yeah, Pat.
Has that changed over time where people have more vehicles and more stuff into that parking pads, or is it?
Yeah, I don't have quantitative data myself. I don't know, Tom, if you guys have perspective on
Why do we need the extra space?
you.
In most cases, not all, but in most cases, it's for parking recreational vehicles, whether that be an RV or a boat or something of that nature. But that's usually the reason that we're looking to expand.
Okay, Julie.
Make sure we use the mic.
Yeah, please use the mic. I forgot to remind everybody. Otherwise, you can't hear it on tape.
Julie Mason, lot 2224. If I'm not mistaken, the rule about the parking pads was only created in the late 2016, 17, something like that.
I'm not sure.
That rule has not existed forever. So if you're seeing it come up, it's because that rule was created, and now you're seeing the people who didn't really understand the restrictions we were creating when they added that rule. That's what I think. That's why I think you're seeing it. It's not that it's been a rule that's been around forever and you just didn't see anybody asking about it. It was a newer rule that was created. And now people are seeing how it doesn't really fit. Like you were saying, all the lots aren't cookie cutter. They're all different shapes. And in my position, there are quite a few rules that we have that don't apply to everybody equally. And I feel as if you're looking at that rule, there's quite a few other ones that I think also need to be looked at as well. They unfairly punish some and create rules that are very hard for everybody to abide by. Just my thoughts.
Okay. Anybody else?
speak on my own behalf.
Absolutely.
I'm Christy Dole, it's my husband Wade, and we are the guilty people here. So I just want to speak on my own behalf. We've lived here for 22 years. We love it. We have done other projects. We did a deck not long after we moved in. We've done a shed. We actually had to pour our initial driveway. Our house was 4 years old when we purchased it and still had a gravel driveway. So through those processes, we have sought the normal approval route. This lady who spoke is correct. The rules have changed and over the years, and I'm going to say we clearly knew we should have gotten approval because we had done it before. A few things that happened. So we had been debating about pouring a patio in the back next to the deck. We have a firefighter friend who does concrete work on the side. He was very backed up. So we just said, put our name on the list, knowing we had months to go through the process and stuff. Well, suddenly a couple things changed. We randomly bought a camper and you get it home and you're like, where are we going to put this? Around that very same time, he called us and said, I have a cancellation and I can get out there and get to work on your property. So we quick made the decision that it would make much more sense to extend our driveway so that we could house our camper to the side and back, as opposed to some of, frankly, the horrible looking situations that I drive around the valley and see every day where they're parked in dead grass and mud and they're lopsided and it looks really garbagey, frankly. So I want my house to look very nice. So there's also a rule out there, and I think this is where some confusion comes in. There's a rule out there about not needing approval for things that are below 8 inches above the ground or something like that. So we're kind of in this panic mode of like, do we have him pour this driveway? What do we do? We've got neighbors actually brought me a page out of the Echoes that were like, you're good to go now. Things have changed. You don't need the driveway, whatever. We made the probably not good decision to switch him immediately over to pouring a driveway so we could put our camper back and alongside. The secondary thing to that was when we poured our initial driveway, you've got the width of your 2-car garage. We went a little over, not ever realizing and looking back even on that approval that was partially considered a parking pad. So we didn't know that we were adding to our parking pad necessarily. To us, this was the driveway, and now we're adding a parking pad. But then when it was come and measured out, they were including part of what had been there for 20-some years as part of this new parking pad. Needless to say, okay, so then we had to come, we decided to take the route of requesting the variance, which I know for a fact that our neighbors have no issue. We knew we had a deadline of, I think it was February 3rd, to say whether we were going to request a variance or not. From about Thanksgiving on up until today, I was at the hospital today, my father-in-law is dying in the hospital. Our life has been upside down, and we missed our deadline. And for that, I'm sorry. We did not intend to miss the deadline. We did not foresee that. We had every intention of asking for our variance on time. We have since asked for the variance. So that is where we are. I understand the rules are in place, and I understand we did not follow them. I'm not denying that. We did what we thought was the most aesthetically pleasing to our property. And it is very aesthetically pleasing. I don't think that's without a doubt. It's much better than, there's actually someone very near to us who owns a lot next to their house with nothing on it, except they poured some gravel there and put their camper there. I mean, you might actually drive down my road and think it looked like someone was living in a camper on a lot. Then that was their home. So it's clear, it looks very nice. It was done professionally. And I just wanted to speak on our behalf. We did not intend to break the rule. We are sorry we missed the deadline for the variance, but we have every intention with going through the process and accepting the outcome. I just wanted to speak on our behalf.
Okay. Thank you. We're very
Thank you.
sorry for the family situation, and I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah, it's still not resolved. so.
Because if you go across the valley, the challenge we'll forever have, whether we have 165 pages of rules or 5 pages or 500, whatever is appropriate, we don't do well in the gray zone. And that issue of aesthetically pleasing to one person is, to another person not. So it's a tough issue. And Julie, your point, I wish we could solve more of those things here. And this stuff makes social media, and then we get into, well, everybody's not treating fairly. Well, if you get into the gray zone a little bit more, you'll have more of that, right? So it is not an easy issue. But I just want to reiterate, we're going to go back and relook at it. We've had probably 6 issues in the last 3 months that we had to get clarification on the bylaws, and that's a whole nother subject, because when we get the clarification, it's pretty clear that there's some things that need to be rewritten. It's a big issue, not with just this. We have a lot of backtrack to do. Is everything still appropriate in 22 as it was 5 years ago, 20 years, whatever? So we don't want to undo an environment where folks like rules, because if you read them, you know what needs to be done. I appreciate the apology, but like I said, a lot of this is going on, and so we want to support anybody that has a request, make sure we thought through it, but we also want to support Tom and the group, because we put them in a tough spot. So we have some reevaluation to do. One more question on this and we'll move forward.
Julie Mason, lot 2224. Just to be clear, I would love to see them keep everything as they have it.
Sure.
But we had a very similar situation. We went through the process. We wanted to put a parking pad beside our garage to park our camper, but the parking pad was fine, but what we would have had to put down to connect it to our driveway made the parking pad too big. So they said we could put the pad down, but drive through our yard to get onto the pad. So we never built it.
Right.
And now we park our camper outside of the neighborhood unless we're, going on trips, and then through the summer, you'll see it in our driveway. But, we're part of the grandfather part of that for the camper. So I guess we could legally just leave it where we have it all the time, but out of trying to be neat and tidy as often as we can, we park it somewhere else when we can. But, you're going to see this a lot. There's going to be people who have tried to accommodate and really cannot. I mean, it's just not even possible because of the restrictions. And like I said, there's other rules too that this don't apply like this. And I can, if you do decide to review more of this stuff, I'd like to be part of that, because
Careful what you ask for.
I know.
Like, seriously.
But I just see it very often. I mean, there's a couple instances I can think of at the moment that I'm just like, I don't even know how that's there. I don't know if it's been looked at. There's really no clarity on what's been checked and what's grandfathered and what's not, and who got a variance and who didn't. And
Okay, so let me stop you right
all
there.
of that
So
stuff.
tell me what you would do to fix that part. The clarity on what's grandfathered, what's not. Has that been approved? Has it not? Like, give me your recommendation on what we should think about when we come back and look at this one and probably 6 or 7 other rules currently.
So it's not a matter of what I think needs to happen to the rules, but when you drive around the neighborhood and you see things and something new is built, and then I'm like, that doesn't meet the standard. I know it doesn't, but I'm not going to bring it up. I'm almost cheering for that person, saying, good for you. You got something built that the rest of us didn't get built, and it's not being torn down. It's not being questioned. It's not being looked at, or maybe it is, but I have no idea of that. I feel like there should be some accountability or some clarity for us as the people who live in the neighborhood to know what's been ticketed or cited or reviewed. I mean, we can't go back in time, but I think going forward, when the compliance officer writes up things, that should be public record for us to be able to review. And we should be able to see that he's checking all the properties, that he's going on the lake. He's looking at the lakefront properties, that they're not I mean, he may be doing that, but I don't know. And nobody knows. And the people who feel like they're being picked on don't know where he goes. But I know I see him, I'm working from home now. He's down my street all the time. Is he down everybody's street all the time? I don't know. I know there's a couple people who have been cited and kind of looked at and watched over the years. And so I've seen him a lot in our, but if I knew what his route was, I knew he was doing things, like there was some systematic review of of plans or whatever. So to me, I think if there was some kind of public record of where he's going, what he's doing, and what lots are being cited for what, then people could say, okay, they've already looked at that. And then maybe could, in your mind, feel like I'm not the only one who's been picked on a bit.
So let me do something very informal. Raise your hand if you'd like to see everything documented in a public document on who's been cited across the valley 365 days a year. Cited and or a situation reviewed. I'm just curious. Hold on a second.
We had to put a sign in we currently have a sign in our yard that shows that we,
Yep.
I don't know really exactly what, that we broke the rules.
No,
and
we
we
asked
are,
for
Yeah.
that we're requesting a
Okay.
variance or whatever. So,
That's part of various process.
So-
is that-
So can we stop for a second? I'm serious. Like, can I see hands of people that would be interested in Julie's recommendation?
I think it depends on
Okay.
to what extent.
Okay.
Transparency is one thing.
Sure,
It's like
sure.
Having a police blotter in the paper.
No, I know. There's a method to it.
Restate those.
Like the police request you're done, where it's not saying details of do, but I can say the height. That's
It shows the
not
situation.
detailed, but
not
allow,
necessarily. The situation, but not.
Okay.
that would be better.
Yes, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Scott King.
Yep, it's got.
Going through the record, I misspoke. My lot is 2341.
You will not be cited, Scott. Thank you.
Okay,
That's,
so,
If I can make a quick comment.
Yeah, let him finish. Yeah, then we'll come back and wrap this
I
up.
thought you were just correcting your lot number.
no, so I don't know the rules for the architectural committee, but
Yep.
is the word grandfather even as a search term in the Bible? Yeah, so the term used, grandfather, is kind of loosely bannered around in business, if you will, for this type of subject. And I don't know if the code or our rules have a non-conforming use clause that would help maybe clarify things that are already in place. And that is what it is, but going forward, we're gonna do this, which is whatever the rules are now, or whatever they might change.
Okay.
That's just a thought. So, the grandfather, my point was,
Yep, I got you.
there's no grandfather.
Just a quick a comment. First of all, the bylaws are online.
Yep.
For everyone to go to and read, not just those for architecture, but all of our bylaws. To Ms. Mason's comment, I'm not sure, but I think that any citation that is written by our compliance officer must go through the judicial committee. And I'm sure that that would be in their minutes, and that is public record, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think,
So, I'm sorry?
I don't think judicial minutes are on record.
Well, they don't put their minutes out there? Okay, that might be something you could look at.
All right, one more question, then we're gonna move forward. One more.
Well, Phil Heights, lot 2730. Just some comments. I happen to be on the architecture committee also. First of all, somebody, a lady, I don't know who it was, mentioned that structures over 8 inches high. I ran across, I was looking up basis for other rules, and I ran across a rule. It's a county rule, and of course, our architecture rules have to comply with anything the county insists on, and the county says that they have to have a permit for anything that's over, any structure that's over 8 inches high. So I think that's probably the foundation for that one.
Sure.
I wouldn't swear to that, but
Yep.
it's probable. Okay. as far as the grandfathering is concerned, when an issue comes up to us in committee, we usually have Gina go check the records and see if it was ever permitted. When that way we can determine whether or not it was just something somebody did fly by night on some weekend project, you know.
Okay, all right, thank you. So we're gonna move forward. Obviously, just this short conversation, we will never all agree, right? But when we get something repetitive, right? We're not pointing fingers at anybody, but it's worth taking a look at. Do we have it right or do we not? And that's really the spirit of this. Okay, so thank you for everybody for sharing.
Okay, to continue on, and it's very timely. We have 2 suggestions for bylaw changes
Awesome.
this evening. And as we come across them and find wording or intent that can be skewed or should be changed to update it, make it current, our committee, at least with the bylaws that we're governed by, that's the section 4 in your bylaw records. We try to do that correction. I have 2 this evening. Please, the board, we would like to make a change request for the bylaw 4-4-41, which are lot splits. That bylaw currently reads, proposed lot splits must be presented to the architecture committee along with redrawn surveyor signed plot plans, including existing structures. The board of directors give final approval for all lot splits. A split lot does not change the lakefront designation of said lot. We would like to alter that a bit and expand on it. We would like it to say 4-4-41 lot splits. Proposed lot splits must be presented to the architecture committee with an Indiana registered surveyor signed plot plan, including all existing structures on the lot being split. Again, the board of directors gives final approval for all lot splits. A split lot does not change the lakefront designation of said lot. B, proposed lot split lines must be straight. C, architecture committee may review adjacent plot plans for potential setback issues. And D, future projects will require lots to be contiguous and a new revised plot plan prepared by a licensed Indiana registered surveyor must be provided by the property owner to the POA. You want to vote on that one, or you want me to go into the second?
I
believe this is
Oh,
the
that's
first,
reading.
this is just the
It's the first
first
reading.
reading.
It's the
Yeah,
first reading,
yeah,
right? So
sorry.
we want to open it up for comments from both the board if there's any questions, as well as the audience, so we can take in any feedback that's there. Does the board have any?
I'll just make one quick comment. This was brought up from some surveyors and some research at the county that our process was not correct, that we've had for years. So we're just trying to clean that up and get in compliance.
Trying to correct it. All right, the second one, that we'd like to submit this evening.
So there were no questions from the audience.
I'm sorry, I didn't see any.
All right, so Tom, we can move that to the second
All right, the
reading.
second one is in
Thank you.
location and height of fences, 4-13-3. It currently reads, A, fences may follow the property line and must be located in the backyard with few exceptions and must not extend past the back corner of the dwelling closest to the road, which includes corner lots. The area a fence may occupy will hereinafter be referred to as the buildable part. B, fences must not exceed 4 feet in height if decorative, 6 feet in height if for privacy. We would like that language to be changed to this 4-13-3, location and height of fences. Fences may follow the property line and must be located in the backyard with few exceptions and must not extend past the back corner of the dwelling closest to the road, which includes corner lots. And B, fences may not exceed 6 foot in height if for privacy. All fences exceeding 4 feet in height must be located in the buildable portion of the lot. That's all we've got to see.
Okay. Any board questions on that one?
No.
Anybody from the audience?
I realize that's a mouthful.
Okay, so both of those go to the second reading next month.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, we do not have a finance committee report. Kyle Pecker is not available to David Wisman. Is there anything else we need to add? Or we good to move past it? Okay, perfect. Mr. Lawrence, he's already up there ready to go. Beautiful. He wants to get home, George, right?
Good evening, everybody. I'm George Lawrence, Chair of the Future Planning Committee, Lot 1882. We have a very, very busy schedule, and I'm only going to report on 3 of these items tonight. More to come in the annual meeting. 50th Anniversary Task Force is in very, very much active mode right now. Pat is the chair of that. Several things happened since the last time we met. Thanks to Dave Wisman, we received a proclamation from the Dearborn County Commissioners congratulating us on our 50th anniversary. And I know that's suitably framed. I don't know where it's hung at this point. Anyway, thank you, Dave, for looking into that for us. The pub crawl was an amazing success. I hope some of you got to it. We had a lot of tremendous comments about it, a huge attendance, and thanks here to the Civic Club, Steve, Sherville, and I don't know whether that is Al Norfolk here.
No, he's not.
No.
Al too. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
The comments were, let's do this more often. All of the venues, all the vendors involved were amazingly busy that evening. Made a lot of money, saw a lot of people, and would like to do it again. So, Steve, put that on your agenda.
We'll have to see, huh?
Yeah, more pub crawls. We are planning additional events, not in detail yet, revolving around Memorial Day, July 4th, and Labor Day. And we're looking for events or ideas for events, which would be youth-only events. So if anybody has an idea of what 25th anniversary or 50th anniversary event could be focused strictly on youth, we appreciate your thoughts and ideas on that. Any questions about 50th anniversary? Oh, one other thing. As you're driving around Hidden Valley, we found out through much detailed research, there are 5 flagpoles in Hidden Valley. They belong to the PLA, and they now all have a 50th anniversary flagpole. So I think we're suitably represented in that area. And if you have a flagpole that you'd like to see a 50th anniversary flag on it, let us know. We have a few extra. Okay, the Communications Task Force is focusing primarily, and by the way, Rich Cannon is chair of that. Rich is right here. Right now we're focusing, we have about 6 or 8 different projects, but the main concentration right now is on the echoes. There are 3 things we're working on specifically. One is maybe looking at a reformatting of the echoes so that it's easier to read and that things are in the same place every issue. We're also looking at creating standard articles. We've been doing this all along, and we have a list of other standard articles that we hope to have in each issue. And then the final thing we're looking on is some future delivery issues. How can we deliver the echoes to you in a more convenient way for all of us? So those things are going on, no detail at this point, but we meet approximately once or twice a month, and we're very busy. So if you have a passion, by the way, for publishing or printing or writing, let us know, because we have some room on that task force.
George, I'm wondering if most people here know what the cost model is for echoes.
The cost model right now is $0.
Correct. The POA pays nothing for echoes. The publisher, Register Publication, sells advertising. And they sell it. They keep all the advertising dollars. We provide them with the editorial content, everything that goes in it. And then they bring it here. The Garden Club makes a few dollars by stuffing in inserts, and then it is mailed at their expense.
That proposal worked pretty well for a number of years. Unfortunately, that's changing. And it's forcing us to look into some other alternatives. We're trying to avoid future costs, as we said right now, basically, there's zero cost to the POA for the production and delivery of the echoes. But that is probably gonna change, and we don't have enough details yet to report plan. Any questions about that? Yes,
Amy Ayers at 2106. Just a quick question, do we have an idea what the paper would cost? I mean, what we would look at if the
There
register?
are several components to the cost. One is, of course, the editorial, the editing and the layout. We don't have a cost on that because that's basically not been known to us from Register Publications, by the way, is our current vendor for the echoes. Another component of the cost is the printing itself. And the third component is delivery. And that's broken down into stuffing, inserts, putting labels, and the actual mailing costs. Because of our zero cost arrangement with Register Publications, we don't have great detail on all of those components. But we're going to get those. That's part of the research we're doing.
So could we just do it on the web? I mean, is that kind of maybe?
We are looking at an online version, and in fact, we probably, at least for a period of time, will go to an online version plus the printed version. But again, that's something that we're definitely looking into. We doubt at this point we would replace the printed version completely, but the online version has so many more possibilities of usability, improved usability, than the printed version does. So we're going to be looking at both enhanced printing and online version.
Thank you.
Phil.
Phil Hines, lot 2730. I was just kind of curious. It seems to me I've seen people helping with the putting together the stuffing and so on with the echoes. Is a lot of that done by volunteer labor?
That is done primarily by the Garden Club. And what does completed by the Garden Club. And they do receive a payment for doing that. There's a payment that comes to them currently now, Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, from Register Publications itself. And then there is an opportunity if the inserts become more than normal, there's an additional cost that they approve also. So the Garden Club basically is the sole recipient of the revenue or the cost of stuffing. Right now, that comes from Register Publications. That's part of our current agreement with Register.
Thanks. Okay. All right, let's keep
Okay,
moving forward.
thank you. The third task force we have, D. Hacker, sitting right here, is chair of that task force. We are looking at the possibility of a feasibility study for the front entrance. We've had a lot of input on this and requests to look into this, so we formed a task force about 6 or 8 months ago. I don't remember exactly, in late summer, early fall. The task force is currently staffed by 9 members, and then we have 9 very highly qualified residents here in Hidden Valley that are helping us as consultants. So right now we've got 18 people working on this thing. We're meeting a couple times a month, but that probably would have to increase because our objective is to have a budgetary number in front of the Finance Committee by October this year. And that's going to be a lot of work. We do not have any firm designs yet. We will probably have a phased approach to this. Because of cost considerations, we thought that breaking it down into smaller cost components or phases would probably be the best way to approach this thing. But again, we have no details yet. We're just doing a whole lot of research. So basically, our intention is to follow all the guidelines of the project request form and to have that information in front of the budget group by October. If possible, we would look at some small amount that could be done this year, but anything we would do this year, of course, would have to face the approval of the residents, but also would probably have to be privately funded, or the possibility of a grant is also possible. So we haven't completely outruled the possibility of doing something this calendar year, but that would not be including POA funds. That would be financed through other means. We also understand the need for community surveys on this. We know at least one is required. We probably would consider maybe 2 of them, just to make sure that the residents are first informed as to what's going on, but also to get their opinion about our progress. So we are planning surveys. Again, no deadline or no dates yet, but at least 1 or 2 are going to be required for sure. So in light of that, we have a late request for the board. This is a request for motion that the POA board authorize the Flood Insurance Task Force to proceed with determining the feasibility of upgrading the HVO front entrance.
Okay,
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right.
I was expecting a bloodbath here.
No, sometimes we get lucky. Pat, you update a little bit more this year.
Okay, so more communication on this will be certainly coming soon. Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Thanks, George. Let's do, Eric, one thing. Great job. You can sit down, relax. Pat's we actually talked through this, knowing the request was coming. Just gonna have Pat do a couple little tweaks to what's gonna be on the record so that we're crystal clear as to the approach that we're gonna try to take.
Right. We certainly understand the need to keep the community informed about what the task force is working on and what the things to be considered are. But it may be that in the end, we choose to not rely heavily on surveys or votes. This will certainly fall below the threshold where we are required to go to the community for approval to do it. But we may streamline things a little bit, maybe be a little bolder, and move forward without a lot of formal surveys in the interim. So just wanted to bring you up to date on that. But we do recognize that it is incumbent on us to make sure the community knows what it is we are considering, because this is a very emotional issue for many people, pro and con, the water wheel and the deer.
All right, any questions before we move forward? No? Okay. Eric, it's all yours. Sorry for the stop and start there, bro.
Like the new logo up there.
You like that? How about that?
The guys who are putting that together, which is great, thank you. First, I want to start by acknowledging that we had a nice seminar. Pat actually sat through with me. I got invited to go to Casey's Outdoor Solutions. They're talking about runoff problems and water, how we handle that in the valleys. They had lots of creative solutions. Of course, he sells all the stuff you need to kind of work on that. But I did want to give him props for that, because it was a good presentation. I learned a lot from it. So thanks to Casey and his team, and Linda Hartman, who's instrumental in that as well. Gate closed 3/19, so the lake is now officially open for business while the gate is closed. So let's hurry up and get some rain here and get everything filled up, and we can get to our lake business. Fishing Game Club, they're going to start their tournaments shortly. The first one is a senior tournament coming up on the 31st, followed by the regular club tournament on the 2nd. I think that's right. Looking at you guys nodding your head. Okay, good. So that's coming up real quick. Ken was filling me in just a little bit, editorial here, but he said they were out fishing on Sunday and caught a 6-pounder and a 4-pounder in the lake. So if you don't think there's big fish in the lake, that's a lie. We've got some good fish, and the Fishing Game Club's helping to make that happen with us. Lake Patrol is fully staffed. Our next step is the Lakes Committee is going to be working with Dave and our security committee to kind of make sure that they understand our priorities this year in terms of rules that need to be watched and enforced, so that we don't have issues of equity or anything like that in particular. Because I know that we hear about that on the Lake Patrol and how they kind of enforce rules. So we want to make sure that we start fresh with them with a new committee this year, or a new group of security team on that boat this year. Next, we're going to set up a task force within within our Lakes Committee, and we're going to have some folks who are looking at small lakes. One of the concerns, well, many concerns we have around the small lakes is, weeds, which is kind of a typical problem here. Erosion, things getting into the lakes, again, kind of a typical problem that we're now kind of focusing in on. And how we might better service those areas to make it a little more naturalized, and kind of after we've taken trees and things out. So we're going to start that group. Adam Maurer, Jill Bittner from our Lakes Committee are going to kind of head that up. We've got a stout number of people who came to the last committee meeting who are very interested in how we make that work. Not only to try and do that in a way that doesn't involve chemicals, but how do we make this a sustainable thing for the people who live on those small lakes. And for those of you who don't know, we have 6 of those throughout the community with people living, a very number of people living on those. So we want to make sure that that's protected as well, that it looks as nice as we have our main lake. Next, Cincinnati, I always think these, I always joked about how long these lake reports were. Now I'm giving them all the time.
Yeah.
Cincinnati Youth Bass, Ken Horn brought to us a request by them. They wanted a service project. They want to be able to recycle monofilament fishing line. And so they wanted to place, basically it's a large PVC cylinder, and we're going to place 4 of these around the lake. And you'll be able to put, if you're a fisherman, you've got excess or spent monofilament line, you put it in there instead of throwing it in the trash, or worse, throwing it in the lake. And these guys will come around and they'll pick it up and they'll recycle and make sure it's taken care of. So we're going to put 4 of these in. They're going to be at the marina. They're going to be at Kathy Lake, Crystal Lake, and Melody, yeah, the one at the front, sorry. So we're gonna have 4 of those around. So since the Youth Bass will be in charge of kind of monitoring that and cleaning that up, and our lakes, or our Fishing Game Club is gonna kind of help oversee that and make sure they get that taken care of. So I think that'll be a nice enhancement for the area. And we appreciate them coming out to do that. They do, and for those of you who don't know, since Youth Bass, it's a group of young people. They fish all over the place, but we do host a big tournament here. They come out, they fish on our Fishing Game Club boats. They have a wonderful time out here, and they really love fishing the lake. So it's a good partnership to be involved with that group. Let's see, lake. Well, here's the big one. We want to introduce an amendment on the boat canopy rule. So partnering with Architecture, Tom Cross, we had some concerns about whether or not things in the bylaw were not in the bylaws, so that they would not be able, so they would have a hard time enforcing those. So we want to kind of get our size limits. And I guess the backstory of that, we have a form that sits in the POA office, and it contains all the limits, maximum limits and colors and things like that. And so we wanted people to kind of go through there, tick the boxes, and kind of make sure they understood what was going on. It made it difficult for Architecture to be able to kind of approve those because those limits weren't living in the bylaw. So the current bylaw reads this. It's 4.12.6. It says covers on docks and boat lifts. Part 1, a dock may not have covers. Part 2, a boat lift may have a shore station revolution frame and canopy cover as recommended and approved by the Architecture Committee. So what we want to do instead is, again, same rule 4.12.6. Part 1, a dock may not have covers. So again, you can't just have a pavilion over your dock. 2, a boat lift may have a shore station revolution frame and canopy cover as recommended and approved by the Architecture Committee. The change comes in Part A that comes below Part 2. Canopies can have the following maximums: length 30 feet, width 10 feet, height 10 feet above the summer pool, overhang to aft, the back of the boat, sufficient to cover the outboard/IO motor or swim platform. Style and colors are subject to the application held at the POA office. Again, our intent here with these covers, and I know this gets recorded, the intent for the Lakes Committee anyway, we want you to have a nice cover over your boat, keep everything covered. What we don't want you to have is a 16-foot dinghy with a 30-foot cover. So again, we're concerned about the maximum overhang and things of that nature here. So the idea is, protect your investment. So with that, I asked the committee, I guess this is just the first of 2 readings.
Correct. Yep.
So any questions or comments from Bill?
Yeah, it's still Heights, lot 27 building.
Phil, you have to have a mic. Sorry.
Phil Heights, lot 2730. And this has been discussed, but no solution yet has been arrived at. Now, if these covers and so on can present some obvious problems, being parallel to the shore is not much of a problem, but if you go perpendicular with your dock, with your boat lift, now we start looking at problems, especially on those little fingers of the lake. They could just about block the whole finger off in some locations. I don't know of anything stated about how to prevent that from happening.
Are you looking for an answer, or you just make a statement?
I'm just saying, we need to
Is that a
look
question or is
into
that a statement?
that. It's something that I'd like to know if we're going to be looking into that and doing something about it.
Well, my thoughts are this, Bill, on that. Folks, if you give us a second here. If I've got a boat lift which is approved that's perpendicular to the shoreline, and I put my boat on that, again, the intent of this cover is not supposed to stick substantially further out than the boat. So you're either gonna hit my boat or you're gonna hit my canopy if my boat's not in the canopy. So I really don't see that being an issue so far, because you have to have the boat lift approved. And if you guys in the architecture approve a boat lift and a finger,
Yeah, the
you know,
boat's
what
already
do I
gonna
say
be.
about that?
Okay, so basically it's up to the architect.
It's always been at up to the discretion of the architecture committee to decide whether or not that lift was permissible in that spot, regardless of where it is.
Okay, yeah, I was just putting anything in writing on that, so.
It's all in the rule.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? You guys, a lot of chatter back here. Is there anything for, okay.
No,
cool.
you covered it.
Just want to make sure, all right.
All covered.
With that, I'm done. All right, thanks, guys.
Amy, we are 20 minutes away from our goal. No pressure though. Take your time. Take your time.
Okay, real quick. I am real quick, actually. First things first, I would like to introduce our new pool manager, Nora. She's got a lot of work cut out for her, and she's been awesome. We are getting ready to get this vacuum, so we won't have any issues with that. Also, we would like to do a family night and / grill out. I know we had discussed kind of this triathlon, kind of figured out I bit too much off. So we said, let's just do a grill out, have everybody come up, maybe find somebody to play music. Jason has some connections with Nestle. I'm gonna see if we can't get some ice cream, like the big tubs. I'm still kind of working on him on that. But we have money out of the vending machines that we would like to use. We can use that, but I wanted to talk with you, Pat, to see if maybe we could do part of this as a 50th kind of celebration. Nora's almost got all of her lifeguards handled, right, Nora? And I think she's got an assistant that's going to help her, which will make this transition a lot easier for her and everybody else. I am going to move on to the trails. The committee walked the trails along with Dave and the maintenance to mark the placements for the signs and to see what needs to be maintained for the trails. We hope to get the post in, and then John is going to meet with the sign company and get that produced for us. And I am kind of pushing them to get this accomplished. I would like by the end of April. I think I originally said by the end of March, and now we're at the end of April. It can get done. We also have attendants or attendees, Rick Baumgartner, along with his wife Jenna, and Pink Bates attended the meeting. We had a great time. Rick is also kind of helping us to do the big board, which you would kind of see there on the left-hand side, which we would have it covered and be able to see the updates on certain trails. Say maybe some trees went down on some trails and we could mark that and say, hey, you know, we're working on this trail, use this trail, and also establish more difficult, so you don't get into a trail and go, oh, well, do you keep going forward or do you turn around? So you kind of know what you're getting into before you get there. We are teaming up with the Dearborn County Anti-Litter to clean up State Line Road on April 2nd. That's a Saturday. We're going to meet at Sugar Ridge at 8:30 a.m. and they'll kind of go over some of the rules and what we're doing. If you would like to come, bring your own gloves. They won't supply that, but they'll have everything else to bags and such for recycle and things like that. And I will let Rich know, maybe we can get that out on, yeah, it is in Echoes, yes, along with some other, I didn't see Georgetown, I'm not quite sure. I was gonna talk to Celeste when we got there and see what was going on with that, and maybe we can help her out with that also. And I think that's it.
All right.
How was that?
That was fast. Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome, thank you.
All right. Any old business?
I just have one thing.
Go ahead, Ed.
For those of you who were here the last meeting, Mr. Ed Graham was asking some questions around the intent when we asked the community to approve the assessment for the golf course. I went back and researched all our slides, all our communications, and it was very clear from the beginning that our intent was to put an upper limit on what it would cost property owners to acquire this golf course, because at the time golf was a struggling business and COVID certainly has changed that to some degree. And so there was no provision made then, nor have we since behaved in a way that the excess monies after the mortgage is paid would go anywhere other than the golf course. I called Mr. Graham the day after the meeting, and I just wanted to close the loop with any of you here who may have listened to the exchange last month.
All right. Any new business? Ken?
No, wait for my microphone. Nice. Ken Horn, lot 27, 9091. I've got a question on the ballots that went out. I got mine out of the mailbox the other day and I almost threw it away. Reason being, I'm in the mail business, and if it doesn't say first class, I pitch it. Reason being, our ballots were mailed out pre-sorted standard, which is basically junk mail.
Okay.
And they're not forwarded, they cannot be forwarded by the post office, which doesn't affect people living in the valley. But say you have your POA members who do not live here, but they own lots, but they can vote in the election, correct?
Yes.
You mail it to, say they live in Fairfield, you mail it to their house. The address you have on file, but if they've moved recently, they're not gonna get it.
Okay.
And I don't know if they've always been mailed out standard, or if that was just implemented as a cost saving measure. Maybe that's something we could look at.
Jenny, you want to respond to that, or
So,
you don't? Sorry, Jenny. Sorry. Sorry, Jenny.
I believe they have I'm sorry, Jenny Boyer, 1570. They've always been mailed that way. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. We'll look into it.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Thanks, Ken.
And we'll get you guys a phone number so you can call the people that may not get theirs. Will that help in the interim? Maybe? I'm just teasing. I get it. I'm just trying to get a little smile at the end here. All right. Anything else?
Mailed out first class.
One more?
I've got just a question.
Yeah.
John Dutton, lot 1854. I read that Steve is going to resign. Thanks for serving. Thanks also, Dave. So if he were to resign before the election, that would leave 2 openings.
Correct.
So then both of those would be appointed to the board, right?
No.
If
there's
2 openings and only 2 people running.
No, John, here's how it is. This is what was put in the communication, so I'll clarify.
If he resigned before the election.
Okay, so go back and tell me what your question is again, 'cause now. I'm
If he were
confused.
to resign before the election,
Okay,
that would be 2 openings with only 2 candidates running.
okay. So the way this is gonna work is that at the time of the election process, right? We had 1 opening, Dave Hapner, we have 2 candidates, we will complete that election per our bylaws. And we do now have an official resignation from Steve that we needed to wait on in writing, which we have that. And just for transparency, I know you don't like that word, but we do. He will take his term through the meeting, the annual meeting in April, and we will appoint his replacement per our bylaws.
Understood, that's in the bylaws.
Correct.
So in the past, you have taken who finished next in line with the next amount of votes to replace an open seat.
Correct.
But not always.
Not
No,
always.
but in the past, it
That has happened.
has happened.
Yeah.
So rather than take the person who finishes second, you may appoint someone that has not run for the board.
We may.
Why would you do that? If they haven't shown an interest in being on the board?
So I could give you a multiple reasons, but we're not going to debate it. All right, we're following the bylaws. The board has the ability to appoint. In the case that you recommended, it was within days. And we had the next available candidate that was a past president, right? And had left the valley, had moved back. And so we evaluated the current election at the time and the possible candidates. We still followed the bylaws of appointing those. That's how we reviewed it. The thing that we've done that I communicated in the letter is that we're going to follow the bylaws because it's important for us to continue to do that. But we also, based on Steve's timing, are going to evaluate the community's reaction to 2 candidates. And that will be a part of the evaluation process because we have the beauty of doing that. If we wanted to, we could have appointed when Steve first announced his resignation. But we chose to let the election run through, follow the bylaws, and that's where we're at.
So you're going to gauge interest in both candidates,
Exactly.
but not gauge interest in someone you may appoint.
What do you mean gauge interest?
What do you mean?
John, I'm not sure where you're going to go with this.
I know,
I don't
I'm just
understand
saying
your
that
question.
you're not, if you appoint someone, you're not gauging interest by the community in that person, the same as you were saying you're going to gauge interest by the number of votes for that.
So what are you recommending?
I think both candidates are qualified to be on the board. They showed an interest, they filled out the paperwork,
Okay.
they did the meet the candidates,
Okay.
and they want to be on the board.
Okay, so let me give you an example of something you may not have thought about, and then we'll move on because obviously you don't agree, and I'm okay with that. We were very, very clear on following the bylaws. We're following the past process. Dave Hafner's not running for the board was a very late decision, and I'll let him speak if he'd like to. Had Dave communicated in advance that he wasn't going to run, I know for a fact we've had interest in other folks that did not want to run against Dave. That's their prerogative. So is there other interest out there? Absolutely. Did they sign up to run for the board? No. We're going to follow the bylaws. This isn't anything different than we've done before.
Not
Any
saying
other-
you're not following the bylaws. I'm not saying that at all. It just seems a little contrived.
Okay. I'm sorry you feel that way.
It seems odd that you would appoint someone without knowing the community's support for that person, the same way you're saying that for another person that's running on the board.
It's part of the responsibilities of the board.
And unfortunately, 2 or 3 of the last board makeups have been this way, where we had to appoint somebody just from resignations, people moving, and that can happen again. You know, if something happens next fall, we may have to go back 2 or 3 elections and look down and list three people deep. That gets muddy too. So that we've always had this rule in place and.
So do you reach out to someone or does someone reach out to you?
There's no desire to reach out right now. We're in the middle of an election process. We're looking for the feedback from the community. Anybody else want to comment on it? And the other thing that I would share, and Pat led this, if this makes you feel better, we went back and did a 10-year look at the boards and how many folks were appointed. It's not just a couple. And it followed the exact same process. It is part of the board's responsibility to make sure that we follow the bylaws and put ourselves in a position to be as strong as we can. There's a lot of expectations of the 5 folks, the committees that are a part of it, and will continue to be consistent with the process. Anything else?
Scott, I'd like to go back to what Ken said earlier. Rich, are we planning to send out a reminder on listserv about ballots being due in? In that way, maybe we can put in there that they were mailed on a certain date, and if you have not gotten one,
That's a great idea.
that we can go back and mail it first class to that individual, whether they live here in the valley or outside the valley.
Okay.
One last quick question.
Yes, sir, and that's it.
So we were talking about this before the meeting. Eric Fox, 1063. If you don't receive your ballot, can you receive a replacement? There's a process for that. Okay.
All right. Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
All in favor?
Yep.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Done.